Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of UTalks. I am so excited to be here with you on today. I'm Dr. Laci C. Robbins of Urban Learning Collaborative, and I have with me my co-host, my co-conversationalist.
Yes, Dr. Clavon Byrd.
So, Dr. Clavon, I'm so excited about today's conversation.
Me too.
Because as we get into having more conversations around leadership, I think it's important to define for yourself and for our group here, what is leadership? How do you define it?
So leadership is a heavy term, right? I mean, so many people have tried to define it. So many, everyone has a different take on it depending on their perspective. And so when I think about all of my leadership experiences, I think of all of the research I've done around leadership. I think about the reading I've done around leadership. And it really boils down to really one concept for me. And to me, that is leadership is action, in my opinion.
Okay.
I believe that leaders act.
Yes.
Leaders are people who act and move. And notice act is a very action-oriented word, for lack of a better word. But leadership involves a lot of action, in my opinion. You have to do something to lead effectively.
To lead effectively. And I think that's the caveat, right? Lead effectively. And when it comes to effective leadership, there are a lot of definitions around what we find effective. And when I think back over the course of my own leadership, I definitely think of instances in which, like, boom, nailed it, right? I had a leadership triumph.
Yes.
But I also think about those instances in which I had a leadership trip up.
Boy, lots of those, right?
Oh my gosh,
lots
my goodness.
Yeah.
And I think for our time today, I really want to get into, from your perspective, when did you have a leadership trip up? And then when was a leadership triumph for you?
Sure. I like that terminology, leadership trip up versus a leadership triumph. This reminds me of a little sign that I have hanging in my kitchen. It's right above the pantry. And it talks about the idea that there are no mistakes, only lessons.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
And so to me, a leadership trip up has to be an opportunity to learn a lesson.
Yes.
And so my leadership trip up, boy, I feel like I might need to take my tie off for this one. It's pretty hot. My leadership trip up occurred a long time ago.
Okay.
I was at the time an assistant principal.
Okay, because
at a school.
over your course, you've been a teacher, a principal, assistant principal, a principal, and worked at the collegiate level, correct?
And as a professor.
And as a professor. Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I've taught everybody from kindergarten through age probably 75.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Or in led groups. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I love it too.
All right. So I got distracted. So
yes,
okay.
That's all right. That's
assistant principal.
The people need to know who's talking to them.
That
right?
is true.
They
is
really
true.
do. So
you got receipts.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Right.
So yeah, it was my first stint as an assistant principal. I was just learning the job. It was probably several weeks into it.
Okay.
And there was an incident that occurred between a couple of groups of students.
Okay.
My full intentions were to make sure that I made my phone calls to the parents about the incident. It hadn't been physical yet. They were just talking, and you know how students do sometimes, right? And my full intent was to make my phone calls to the parents before the students had a chance to walk home.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, uh-oh is right. Well, as a beginning assistant principal in elementary school, my day sort of got away from me. The incident occurred near lunchtime, end of lunch, and they were going home in about an hour and a half.
Okay.
And so as dismissal occurred, we were a very large school. We had lots of buses, lots of students who walk home, lots of students who get picked up by daycares, et cetera. Just a very busy time.
Yeah.
And as the assistant principal, you're the point person.
Absolutely.
For all of
all
that.
the things.
Yes. And so I had bus drivers talking to me. I had teachers talking to me about students who were supposed to walk home, but now will catch the bus. Students who were going to catch the bus, but now we're getting picked up, and just all of that. And so in all of that chaos around me, I neglected to make the phone call that I needed to make.
No.
It didn't turn out well.
Oh.
And so as long as we're talking about the theme of phone calls, I'm sitting in my office after dismissal, catching up on some work.
Emails, I'm sure.
Yeah, emails. And the very next phone call that I get is from an angry parent.
Oh, no.
In which case there was a physical altercation that occurred between the groups of students on the way home.
On the way home. So she was a walker.
She was a walker, as well as
the other children she was having some challenges with.
And so, yes. And so she was not happy, which was followed very quickly by her father making his way into the school, into my office. Not sure how he made it there.
No appointment.
No appointment. But with a lot of, he was breathing fire.
Yeah.
He was ready to go.
Okay.
And so I had to be able to, apologize for my error, that's again, leadership in action, in my opinion. I had to apologize for my error. I had to make this situation whole and right for this family.
Yeah.
And I had to talk down a very angry person, right?
Yeah.
I had to get his emotions stable enough so that he didn't want to escalate the issue. In fact, he had made a few innuendos about the fact that he wanted to escalate the issue.
Okay.
And so I walked out of it unharmed. He walked out of it unharmed.
Right. Well, and so I want to put a pin there.
Physically,
because,
I should say.
Yeah, because you have to have a wherewithal for people to also know, like, ooh, this is tense.
It's tense.
Generally speaking, it's understandable that it's going to be tense anyway, because your baby just got hurt or assaulted, let's call it what it is, on the walk home by a group of the classmates. And so that in itself, you already know the parent's going to be on 10.
It's going to be an issue.
And so you have to then have enough wherewithal in yourself to know how this dad is on 10. How do I keep it's like 29. How do I keep the situation under control and emotions under control, and to also have self-awareness so that you aren't giving back to him. What were you telling yourself?
I'm glad you said that, because at that point in my life, I was a very young man. Had not quite reached 30.
Oh, wow.
And so
how old were you when you went into administration?
29.
I got you beat.
By what? How many?
I was 26. I know. I was assistant principal, 26 years old. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
It was intense.
It's intense, isn't it?
Because I had people just like yourself who were old enough to be a parent to me. Right. And of course, I try to present myself older. I would deny the age, all these things to try to couch and protect myself. Because one of the things that I noticed, so I taught in the inner city, but I was an administrator in the suburbs.
Okay.
And so one thing that I noticed right away is that myself and a colleague across town who did not identify as BIPOC, all right?
Okay.
Same age, but treated very differently.
Sure.
And so I started thinking, okay, well, how do I earn the respect? Let them see I do know what I'm talking about, all the things. Telling myself, having self-awareness, including to the fact of like, I'm presenting older than what I really am, or attempting to anyway.
Attempting.
Yeah.
For me, what has always worked, it worked in this situation, and it worked in many of the other trip ups along the way, is to demonstrate empathy. It was really important for me at that moment to place myself in that man's shoes.
Yeah.
And to say at that time I had a young child. He wasn't as old as the student, but I had a young child who was going to be starting school soon. And how would I feel about this situation?
Yeah.
So empathy goes a long way. If we can put ourselves in other shoes in terms of leaders, in terms of leadership, and see what the situation may look like from their perspective. But at the same time, as I said before, I'm a fairly young person at that point, and I wasn't just going to let him physically harm me.
Absolutely,
right?
No, because we're not sitting here to be pummeled.
There was going to be some back and forth,
Absolutely.
right? But I didn't want that either.
Right.
Right?
That's a whole nother.
I'm his child's principal.
Right.
That in no way is that appropriate.
Right.
Appropriate. So I had to make sure that this situation was dissolving itself very quickly. And so empathy went a long way. And just being willing and having the humility to say, that was my error.
Yeah. Ooh.
And it won't happen again.
Yes. Empathy, humility, these are like the tag team strengths of a leader, of an effective leader.
I agree.
And being able to have, I would also add in there self-awareness, which is directly related to empathy, right?
Yep.
So now we're getting into, if we think about it, like, if I don't have self-awareness, if I don't have empathy, can those things be developed? So we're getting into emotional intelligence, obviously, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, if you feel that you're a little short on empathy or you're a little short on self-awareness, join our cohort. Join Leadership Develop You. Join us and we will challenge you through coursework, through class discussions, through online discussions, through a variety of ways, and of course through homework and other assignments and projects. We will challenge you to develop those skills within yourself.
Yeah. And all of those things connected together will help to make you a more effective leader. All right. So we heard about the trip up.
Yeah, that was a trip up.
And that was a trip up, for sure.
It was a trip.
For sure.
Now, keep in mind, I've had many other, every day I have a trip up as a leader, every single day. But that one stands out in my mind because it reframed the way that I go about leading and communicating with people that I work with. It reframed, and that it was like a stake in the ground from that point on to say, don't make that error again. You have to make sure that you're taking these steps. And now, even 20 plus years later, this is what I do.
So what did you change? What do you do differently after having that as that experience?
Sure. I make sure to remember, I said there was a lot of chaos going on, everyday natural chaos, right? Going on around the dismissal process. I made sure that if something needs to be taken care of, take care of it now.
Right there. Oof.
Don't wait. At the earliest opportunity that you can, take care of it.
That's good. Yeah. And similar to yourself, I often will think, all right, and granted, I believe it was Twain who said, don't put off tomorrow. No, Benjamin Franklin, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. And so I often will even create lists for myself.
Same.
What needs to get done today, or accountability partners, right?
Yep.
Accountability staff help me to remember that I have this happening, because there are so many moving parts and so many different things that are happening, but we can put things around us or put individuals around us. I love the book, Now Discover Your Strengths, because it lets you, we've been cultivated, we've been trained to think, oh, if something is an area of weakness, you need to fortify that, you need to build that up, you need to get that stronger. But this isn't a muscle, right? You need to focus on like, well, what is your strength?
Yes.
And then put people around you that might be a weakness for you, and that's a strength for them.
Yep.
There's another great book that, Who Not How, that also speaks to that. So we might be thinking to ourselves, if I only do more of this thing, I can get better at it. But while you might be good at it, there's someone who's great at it. And you're keeping them from being able to accelerate and be dynamic.
Good. That's good.
Because you're holding on to it instead of allowing them to thrive and to soar. Yeah.
Okay.
So tell us about your triumph, because I know you have plenty of those as well.
I do. I have a lot of those. my triumph is also going to come from my time as a principal. So let's fast forward from my trip up. Let's fast forward about 4 or 5 years now. And I am now a principal of a school.
Okay.
And in fact, let me rewind from that a little bit. Let's fast forward 5 years, but let's rewind 3 days from that moment in time. Let's go back 3 days. So I walk into my office. At this point, I am an assistant principal, having a successful school year, really, building a strong culture of learning in the school where I'm working at. We've been working there for a couple of years at this point. We've got it. We have it down.
Yeah.
And I walk into my office. The lights are out. Before I can flick on the light, I look at my telephone, and that red light at the top of the phone is flashing.
Message,
Voice message. And something intuitively tells me that message is going to change everything that happens from this point forward.
Wow.
It's going to be that serious of a message. So reluctantly, I'm like, okay, let me get myself together. What is this big message? I have no idea what it is. Just working off of intuition at this point.
Yeah.
Open the message, and it's one of the leaders in the district, and that person is requesting me to go to take over one of her schools that she's in charge of.
Okay.
So I give her a call back.
Yeah.
And she's like, thank you for calling me. Looking forward to you coming out to the school. Well, where am I going? Can't really tell you that at this point. Well, how long will I be there? Can't really tell you that either.
Just take the job.
Just accept it.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I'll see you Monday. It's Friday at this point. And I'm like, I'll see you Monday. Don't know where.
Right.
Don't know what time or how long. I'll just see you, right? So a little bit later that evening, I won't go into all of the details here, but a little bit later in the evening, I'm having dinner, and I notice the news is on in the restaurant, and there's a press conference, and they're talking about one of the schools in the district, and there was some trouble there, and that new leadership would be in place on Monday.
Okay.
So I look at my wife and I say, that's where I'm going Monday. She's like, I would bet that too.
Yeah. And was that the school?
Yeah, about an hour later, I get another call, and it's like, I'm sure you've heard by now where you're going. Yeah, I think I have. And and then I didn't understand why there had to be, so much secrecy around it. But now as an experienced leader, I understand. Leaders have a lot of irons in the fire, and you have to make sure that you are removing a leader with dignity and grace while setting up the next person to move in. And you can't share a lot of information sometimes because people talk, word gets out, etc. So
another strength of leadership is ensuring you can maintain confidentiality.
100%.
Whew,
actually,
respect.
Let me raise that to 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would add that also includes like pillow talk as well.
100%.
Yeah, you can't always even share them with your spouse or your boo or whatever with them either.
Has to be.
Because you're really protecting them by keeping them out of the conversation.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So I arrive at this school. My first ever, remember, leadership is action. My first ever action as the principal of this school is to tell the local news that is broadcasting at 6:45 in the morning from the front
campus.
door of the school that this property is not, you can't be here.
Right.
You can move to the sidewalk, but you can't be here. That's my first ever action as I'm walking to the school. So I walk into the school, and I'm young. I'm 32 maybe, and I have all these ideas. Young is probably not the best word. Inexperienced. I have all this energy, and I have all of these ideas, right? And so I walk into the school, and I'm like, I'm here. And they're just kind of giving me the side eye a little bit.
Like, who's this kid?
Which later revealed to me that, who's this kid? Again, I mentioned I was very young and looked even younger. Didn't have a lot of facial hair. Didn't have the grays and all of that. Didn't have that. That came along much later.
Distinguish. It's all
Distinguished.
Yes.
Yes. So my job over the next year at that school was to help build the morale of the teachers, to help build their morale because they were struggling. They were struggling with losing a leader. They were struggling with the court of public opinion and what others were saying about what had happened in their school, and that everybody in that school must be guilty of something. So emotionally, they were not in a good place.
Right.
So this was my most challenging role as a leader, and it was by far my most effective opportunity to lead, because I had to put all of the ideas about what it means to run a school to the back burner. And I had to start with, how do you build a positive emotional mindset for people who are just struggling at that moment?
Right.
How do you build that? How do you take the time to listen? Which, that's another key.
Another key.
Another key to leadership. You have to take the time to listen. You have to take the time to act when needed.
And I think if they're asking you, whatever they're asking you for in that action, give that to them too.
Give it to them.
Yeah.
Yes, and give it to them without haste.
Without haste.
Without haste. Make sure that they feel valued, because people who choose to allow us to lead them, they want to make sure that we value them as people. They want to make sure that we value them as colleagues.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, my husband often says the most powerful thing in the world is the power of choice.
Yes.
And so if someone is choosing to allow you to lead them, I love that, rather than like, oh, they're choosing to follow you. No, they're choosing to allow you to lead them. That in itself is communicating, like, I recognize that you have my best interests in heart and in mind, which is why I'm making this choice.
Right. It's a social contract, because no one was tying them to this organization. They could have called in sick for the rest of the school year. No one was tying them there. They made a choice to allow me, this inexperienced and even more inexperienced looking young man, to lead their school. And I was there for a total of exactly 12 months. And when I left, I went on to a new opportunity.
Still as a principal?
Still as a principal.
Okay.
I knew I would not be there for, many years.
Okay.
Because my job was of a singular focus, to help the teaching staff, regain what they had lost, right? And so when I left, there were tears on both sides, and the children.
Wow.
And to this day, it has been over 22 years since that experience. But if one of those individuals walked into that room, we cut, where we are right now, I'd say cut, time out, whatever. And I go and embrace that person, and they would embrace me, because we learn so much about ourselves and each other during that time.
Oh, yes.
And it was just so valuable. And I took that with me. It was the idea that building relationships is important in leadership had been with me, my entire life. However, that particular experience taught me how deep relationships can be if the leader really allows them to be, takes the time to demonstrate empathy, etc.
Okay, here's another book reference. Stephen Covey.
Okay, my man.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
You've read that. Everybody's read that.
Everyone's read. If you haven't, I highly recommend you pick up a copy. And one of the habits, he says, people don't know that you care, right? People don't care what you know until they know that you care. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. And so building relationships, building the community,
Yes.
building conversations. All of those are essentially like little seeds that are being planted
Absolutely.
to cultivate this garden
Yes.
so that they know that, yes, in fact, Dr. Byrd, okay, maybe he is for real. Like maybe he is genuine and cares
Yes.
and is
Yes.
wanting to see the best for me,
Yes.
right? So for a leader who might be listening, what encouragement would you give them if they find themselves on either side of a trip up or a triumph?
Sure. If on either side of a trip up or a triumph. So if you're on the trip up side, understand, just as I said before, there are no mistakes, only lessons, right? We're humans, so we make mistakes. That's going to happen. What separates those that are successful is, will you learn from those mistakes?
Yeah.
Right? Will you learn
good.
from that? If you're on the other side of a triumph, understand that there are many people who help contribute to the triumph.
Yeah.
Now is not the time to be an egotistical leader, right? Understand that you and the organization have had a win, and if you can, celebrate those who were part of that victory as
like
well.
that.
Don't take all of the credit
take
for
all the
yourself.
credit.
Don't do it.
And I would also say don't take all the credit if your organization has a trip up.
Absolutely.
Either.
Absolutely.
Because there's more than enough blame to go around. One.
Accept your share.
Accept your share and allow others to do the same.
I agree.
Because I think sometimes as leaders, we also think, oh, I'm the leader, let me fall on my sword. But then who is learning?
Right.
Where's the learning that has now
Right.
happened for others who may have been involved in the situation as
Right.
well?
Right.
So, but yeah, and I like that as from a triumph standpoint. It can't all be about you.
Nope.
You're
going to have, as leaders, you're going to have your share of both. You're going to have your trip ups daily. You're going to have your triumphs daily, right? Keep it in perspective.
Keep it in perspective.
Keep it in perspective.
Oof, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well,
okay.
You know that I have my own to share.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I think they may have to tune in for another episode.
I think that'll probably be the easiest thing to do is to have them come back. Listen, did you enjoy this conversation today? If you got anything out of what Dr. Clavon has shared, let us know down in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going. Be sure to join us back in the next episode. I'm going to share my own personal leadership triumph and trip up. Oof, I know I have plenty of those as well.
Here we go.
And we're going to keep this conversation going. Remember, as we always say, leadership doesn't begin with me. It begins with you. We look forward to seeing you in the next UTalk. I'm Dr. Laci Robbins, Executive Director of Urban Learning Collaborative, and you're listening to UTalks. As a reminder, you can join us here every week so that you can learn more about what's the latest when it comes to leadership. This particular podcast includes various groups, solo episodes, as well as interviews where you get a chance to hear not only from Dr. Clavon Byrd, but also myself, as well as individuals within our community that are leading the next level of leadership. So, how can you be a part? Well, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with everything that's happening at the ULC and in the ULC community. We love to have you be a part of this. So remember, applications are continuously rolling for that you can either be a part of our school community, MESA, you can join and be a part of our teaching community in one of our teacher certification programs, or you can even make the decision that you want to advance and ascend into leadership by being a part of our Leadership Develop You. As we always say, and never forget, leadership doesn't begin with me, it begins with you.